if you've ever poured your whole life into your child and one day realized they only saw you as a burden, this story is for you. I gave everything to my son, my time, my youth, my savings, and on my 70th birthday, he raised a toast that shattered everything. Stay with me. This isn't a loud revenge story. It's something deeper, quieter, and maybe more powerful. I never thought I'd be one of those women, the kind you see sitting quietly at the back of a family gathering, smiling politely while everyone talks over her. But here I am, or here I was, before everything changed. My name is Elaine Parker, and I just turned 70. I live in the same white colonial house my late husband Charles and I bought when Ethan, our only child, was still in kindergarten. Charles passed 5 years ago. Cancer, quick and cruel. He left me with more than just grief. He left me with purpose. That purpose, of course, was Ethan and his family. I've always believed love isn't measured in words, but in what you give without being asked. And I gave. When Ethan was accepted to college, we celebrated with tears and hugs. What he didn't know was that I'd cashed out half my retirement fund to cover the tuition gap. When he and his wife, Dana, were house hunting, I offered the down payment before they even asked. "It's your future," I said. "Let me help." When their son, Noah, was born, I all but moved in. I babysat through fevers, soccer games, tantrums. While Dana climbed the corporate ladder and Ethan traveled for work, I picked up the slack. Grocery runs, school pickups, science projects, Sunday dinners, and I never complained, not once. Because I believed somewhere deep down that all of this would mean something, that I meant something. But meaning is a fragile thing. It disappears the moment people stop seeing you. Every Sunday for the past decade, I've cooked a full meal for Ethan's family. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, that lemon tart Noah loves. They arrive, eat, and leave their plates. Dana critiques my dated decor while scrolling on her phone. Ethan usually brings up work. Noah barely looks up from his screen. No one asks how I am. No one knows I go to painting class on Wednesdays, or that I've started volunteering at the library. But I smile, because I was taught that a mother's love is patient. A mother gives, endlessly. I remember one winter, years ago, when Ethan was 6. He had the flu, and Charles was away on business. I slept sitting up, holding Ethan as he shivered through the fever. I whispered to him all night, promising that Mama was right there. He doesn't remember that. Why would he? But I do. That memory still warms my heart on cold nights. Or, it used to. As my 70th birthday approached, I didn't expect much. A small dinner, perhaps. A homemade card from Noah, if I was lucky. But Ethan surprised me. He reserved a private room at a French restaurant downtown. He called it a proper celebration for my milestone year. I was touched and nervous. I hadn't been out somewhere fancy since Charles died. I spent the afternoon getting ready. I wore the navy dress Charles loved, the one that made him say I looked regal. I curled my hair into soft waves, slipped on the pearl necklace he gave me for our 40th anniversary, and for a brief moment, I felt seen. Not as a mother, not as a helper, but as Elaine. A woman with a life. The restaurant was elegant. White linens, crystal chandeliers, a pianist playing softly near the bar. Ethan greeted me at the door with a kiss on the cheek, already glancing at his phone. Dana looked flawless, as always, in a red designer dress and too much perfume. Noah mumbled a hello without removing his earbuds. We sat. We ate. They talked, mostly about themselves. Dana's promotion, Ethan's latest real estate deal, Noah's new car wish list. No one asked about me. Still, I smiled. I always do. But something felt different that night. Not wrong. Not yet, but off. Like I was attending a celebration for someone else. Halfway through dessert, Ethan stood, glass raised. "To my mom," he said, glancing briefly my way. A few polite clinks of glasses followed. He continued, voice loud and cheerful, as if giving a wedding speech. To the old lady who's heading to the nursing home soon. Let's enjoy her while we still can, right? Laughter? From Dana, from Noah, even from some of their friends I barely knew. Someone at the next table chuckled. A waiter smirked. And I froze. I had a champagne flute halfway to my lips, my smile plastered in place. My body felt numb, but my heart, it cracked. It wasn't just the words, it was the ease with which they came. The way Ethan laughed, like I was a character in a sitcom he was writing, like I wasn't real. Relax, Mom, Ethan added, grinning. It's just a joke. A joke about erasing me, about locking me away, about becoming a memory. I looked down at my plate, the lemon tart. Noah hadn't touched his. He was texting. I swallowed the bitter champagne and the bitterer truth. All the years, all the meals, all the giving, all the hoping that one day they'd say, "We see you, Mom. We remember what you did." But instead, they laughed. And I sat in that moment, realizing something terrifying. They don't see me as a person. They never did, only as someone useful. And now, I'm no longer useful. That was the night something inside me shifted, quietly but permanently. I didn't sleep the night after the party. I laid there, fully dressed in my navy blue dress, staring at the ceiling fans spinning above me. I hadn't even taken off my pearl necklace. It felt like a noose now. Every time it shifted against my skin, it reminded me of that moment. Ethan's voice echoing, "To the old lady who's heading to the nursing home soon," and the laughter. Laughter from my family, from strangers, from my own grandson. Some part of me tried to reason it away. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe Ethan didn't mean it. Maybe they were just awkward, but I knew better. I'd felt something in his tone. It wasn't teasing. It wasn't careless. It was practiced, like he'd rehearsed it. And when I walked into my kitchen that night, something confirmed it. A folder sat on my counter, neat, centered, like a message waiting to be opened. I opened it, and everything inside me collapsed. It was a transfer agreement for an independent senior living facility 40 minutes outside the city. Not a nursing home exactly, but close enough. A place where residents maintain freedom while receiving daily support with cooking, medication, and mobility. I read those words 3 times, my hands trembling, and there, at the bottom of the page, was a signature that was supposed to be mine. It wasn't. It almost looked like my handwriting, but it wasn't. They had forged my signature. Ethan had forged my name on a document agreeing to send me away. The birthday toast hadn't been a joke. It had been a send-off. And I was never meant to know until they dropped me off. I sat down on the edge of the couch and stared out the window. The street was dark. A cat slipped through the bushes. My porch light flickered once, then went out. It was the quietest I had ever heard my house. Even after Charles died, it had never felt this empty. And I realized something horrible. They didn't think I would resist, because I'd never resisted before. They thought they could sign my name, pack my things, and send me off, because I had made it easy. I had never asked for anything, never pushed back, never reminded them of what I'd given. To them, I was, done. Maybe some of you watching this know exactly what I mean. Maybe you've been there, sitting in your own home, reading something that tells you you're no longer needed, no longer seen, no longer trusted to make your own choices. If you've ever been in that moment, I want to say, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve it. And you're not crazy for feeling broken by it. Please, if this story reminds you of your own, share it below. You never know who needs to hear that they're not the only one. Back in the living room, I stayed seated for a long time, staring at the folder. Noah had drawn on the edge of the paper in blue ink, a smiley face, as if this entire thing was some light-hearted family errand. They had all known. Dana with her cold smile, Noah who looked up from his phone just long enough to laugh at the toast, and Ethan, my own son, who had apparently made the arrangements and signed my name. I remembered the way he said, "Don't be so sensitive, Mom," when I didn't laugh. And now I realized he had counted on me not to fight back. to go quietly, because that's all I had ever done. For weeks after Charles died, Ethan had barely spoken to me. He let Dana do the comforting, the arrangements, the dividing of items in the house, and I let it happen. I told myself he was grieving. But the truth is, Ethan had been slowly pushing me aside for years, and I'd been stepping aside with a smile. Until now. I packed the folder away in my bedroom drawer. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going anywhere I didn't choose, and I would never sign anything again. Not with a smile, not with silence, not even with love, unless it was on my own terms. That night, I wrote in my journal for the first time in years. Not a grocery list, not errands, but words that belonged to me. You are not weak. You were quiet, but that is not the same thing. I didn't cry that night. That surprised me, because when I realized what they had done, how far they were willing to go to remove me from their lives, I expected to break, but I didn't. I just sat there, calm and still, like a field right before a storm, and something deep inside me shifted. I was done trying to be the good mother they remembered when they needed something, done hoping they'd change, done playing my part in a family script written without me in mind. I wasn't ready to leave them, but I was absolutely ready to stop being erased by them. For 3 days after the party, I didn't leave the house. I didn't cook. I didn't answer the phone. I didn't reply to the texts from Ethan or Dana. I just moved through the house like a ghost, touching things that used to feel like home, but now just felt like relics. I stood in my living room, staring at the same old family photo that had hung there for 20 years. Ethan, 6 years old, clinging to my waist, grinning with missing teeth. Me and Charles behind him, arms around each other. We used to be a team, a family. That photo felt like it belonged to someone else now, a different woman, a different son. I looked around at the walls. All the pictures were of them. Ethan's wedding, Noah's first birthday, Dana in her designer dresses at fundraisers I was never invited to. But me? I was barely in any of them. And when I was in the background, blurred, forgotten, even in my own house. I used to think it was fine, that it didn't matter, that as long as I was there, I didn't need to be seen. I was wrong. Being invisible is fine, until you realize people have already erased you from the picture. Monday afternoon, I stood at my kitchen sink, staring out the window. The forsythia bushes in the backyard were blooming early this year. Charles used to say that was a sign of unexpected change. He always saw signs in nature. I used to laugh at him for that. Now I wished he were here, just for 5 minutes, because I didn't know what to do next. And that was the part no one tells you about this stage in life. When your usefulness expires, people expect you to just fade, quietly, politely. The sound of a car pulling up snapped me out of the fog. Ethan's SUV, right on time. Monday meant I usually helped get Noah to practice. I didn't move. A minute later, my phone rang. Ethan. Then a text. Hey, Mom, just a reminder. Noah needs to be at soccer at 4:15. Can you grab him? Just a reminder. Like I was the help. Like I had no life, no feelings, no bruises still fresh from that birthday toast. I didn't answer. Another text. Also, don't forget Sunday dinner. Dana's making that quinoa salad you like. Quinoa salad. I hate quinoa salad. I only said I liked it once. Years ago, because Dana made it for Easter and I didn't want to hurt her feelings. And that one small lie had become the only favorite dish anyone remembered about me. It hit me then. How many things they thought they knew about me were based on small, tired assumptions. They didn't really know me anymore. I wasn't a person. I was a role. Grandma, errand runner, free babysitter, emergency backup. I was a resource. And when resources aren't useful anymore, people either store them away or throw them out. That night, I finally opened the drawer where I'd hidden the transfer documents. I read them again, slower this time. My move-in date had already been set, 2 weeks from now. A small note in Dana's handwriting on a sticky tab. We'll tell her next weekend, soften it with Noah. Soften it with Noah? They were going to use my grandson, the child I helped raise, to deliver the news that I was being taken away from my life? It was surgical, cold, like a corporate layoff. I felt my throat tighten, but still, I didn't cry. The tears had dried up the night of the toast. What I felt now wasn't sadness. It was absence, like someone had slowly been hollowing me out for years, and now I'd finally noticed the echo. I wandered into the dining room. The Sunday table was still set from the night before, plates unwashed, glasses still with fingerprints, a birthday balloon drooping over the centerpiece. There had been no toast for what I'd given, no stories about sacrifices, no memory of how I carried that family through its hardest seasons, no mention of Charles, no moment of recognition for anything. It was like I was already gone. And maybe to them, I was. Maybe they had already said goodbye to the part of me that mattered. I went into the guest room, pulled out a suitcase and opened it, just stared at it. I didn't pack anything, but I needed to see it. I needed to remind myself that I still had the power to leave, to move, to choose, because they had made every decision for me for years, and I had let them. But not this time. Not anymore. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of lukewarm tea and whispered to the empty room, "Charles, if you were here, you'd tell me to go. You'd say, 'Elaine, don't let them put you in a box you don't belong in.' And you'd be right." I imagined him smiling across the table, fingers tapping that old chipped mug of his. "You were never meant to fade, Elle. You were always meant to fly." I finally packed the suitcase, but not for the home they chose, for the life I choose. On Thursday morning, I woke up before sunrise. I hadn't planned to. My body simply refused to sleep any longer. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to make me feel at peace. But that day, it felt different, like something was waiting. I walked to the bathroom, turned on the light, and stared into the mirror. There she was. Same silver hair, same tired eyes, same faint crow's feet. But something was different, subtle. My eyes weren't dull, they were sharp, watchful, awake. It had been a long time since I'd looked at myself. Not just glanced, but really looked. Not to check my makeup, not to see if I looked presentable, but to ask, "Are you still in there?" And for the first time in years, I saw the answer. Yes, I'm still here, and I'm not going to disappear quietly. I don't know what exactly snapped into place in that moment. Maybe it was years of being erased. Maybe it was the fake smile at my own birthday dinner. Maybe it was that forged signature, the one that told me my life was no longer mine. Or maybe it was just finally being tired of waiting for permission to be a person again. I made a cup of coffee and sat by the window in Charles's old chair. He used to read the newspaper here every morning, grumbling about the markets, sipping slowly like time would wait for him. I held his mug in my hands and whispered, "I'm going today." At 10:00 a.m., I walked into Hamilton Trust Bank wearing my good gray pantsuit, the one I hadn't worn since Charles's funeral. Felt like armor now. The branch manager, Jim Peterson, looked up from his desk and smiled politely. He'd known me and Charles for decades. When I told him I wanted to liquidate nearly all of our accounts, his smile faded into concern. "That's quite a move, Elaine," he said, lowering his voice. "Everything okay?" I nodded. "It's long overdue." "You've got investments doing well. The CDs will have penalties for early withdrawal." "I'll take the penalty," I said. "I want everything in my control. No more decisions made in my name without my consent." Jim blinked, then nodded slowly. It took almost 2 hours to start the process, closing accounts, consolidating assets. I left enough in checking to live, but the rest, mine, on my terms. Next stop, Jerry Weber, our old family lawyer. He had been Charles's roommate in college, and though he was now in his 70s, he was still sharp as ever. When I stepped into his office, he gave me a warm smile. "Elaine Parker," he said, "it's been a while. To what do I owe the pleasure?" I took a breath. I want to revise my will, and I want to remove Ethan as a primary beneficiary. Jerry didn't flinch. He simply leaned forward. May I ask why? I told him. All of it. The toast, the laughter, the forged paperwork, the plan to move me out of my home without so much as a real conversation. His face hardened. Charles would be furious, he said. I smiled just a little. He would, but he's not here to fight for me, so I'm going to do it for myself. After the paperwork was done, I walked to the little cafe around the corner, the one Charles and I used to visit after every meeting with Jerry. I ordered a cappuccino and sat by the window, and that's when I pulled out the travel brochure I'd been hiding in my drawer for years, the Mediterranean cruise, 15 days, Spain to Greece. It had always felt like a silly dream, a widow's fantasy, a someday that never came, until now. I took out my phone and searched the cruise line's website. Scrolled, read, my heart pounded. Could I do this? Book a solo trip? Leave everything? Walk away from the script I'd been stuck in? Then the screen blinked. Last balcony suite available, book now. I didn't overthink it. I clicked. I entered my name, my credit card, my new email address, the one Ethan didn't know, and when the confirmation came through, I whispered to myself, "You're really doing it. For no one but you." Back home, I started clearing drawers. Not packing, just preparing. Every folded shirt, every photo, every cabinet I opened whispered, "This chapter is done." I found a picture of me and Charles on our 40th anniversary, laughing, champagne glasses raised. He looked so alive in that photo, so sure of me, so proud. I held the frame tight and said aloud, "I'm not running, Charles, I'm reclaiming. I just took the long way." I packed the suitcase. I leave no forwarding address, and I step onto a ship headed toward the life I was never allowed to dream. The morning I left, I didn't say goodbye, not because I was angry, but because I knew that if I told them, they'd try to stop me, not with love, but with guilt, with questions, with noise. And I had no space left for noise, only silence, peaceful, decisive silence. I stood at the door of the house I'd lived in for 43 years. I had raised my son here, cried with my husband in the kitchen during hard times, held my grandson's hands as he learned to walk down the hallway. But now it was just a shell. I touched the doorknob one last time, whispered into the empty space, "Thank you, but I'm not who I was in here anymore." My suitcase was light. I had only packed what I truly needed, a few outfits, my camera, my journal, and a little framed photo of Charles, just his smile, not the full picture. I didn't need reminders of the whole past, just the parts that had loved me right. The taxi came at 9:02 a.m. sharp. As we drove off, I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because what mattered wasn't behind me anymore. The airport was busy. People rushed. Children whined. Announcements echoed. And yet, I felt calm, like I was stepping into the life that had been waiting for me on the other side of fear. I boarded the flight to Barcelona with my hands shaking, but my heart steady. I wasn't running away. I was running to something, to myself. The cruise ship was enormous, white and glittering under the Spanish sun. It looked like freedom floating on water. I checked in. The young attendant smiled at me and said, "Is this your first cruise, ma'am?" I nodded. "It's my first everything." My stateroom had a small balcony overlooking the sea. I stepped out and let the breeze hit my face. It smelled like salt and sunlight, like permission. For the first time in years, I wasn't on a schedule. No one needed me. No one was expecting dinner, or errands, or help. I sat in that quiet for hours, not thinking, not planning, just being. And it was enough. The next morning, I met Agatha, silver-haired, sharp-tongued, wearing linen pants and a necklace shaped like a compass. We bumped into each other in the elevator. She looked at me and said, "You're not here with family, are you?" I shook my head. She smiled knowingly. "You're one of us." "One of who?" I asked. She leaned in and whispered like it was a secret. Women who waited too long to live, but still made it in time. I laughed, really laughed. The sound startled me. It had been so long since I'd heard it. Agatha became my first real friend in years. Every day had a rhythm. Sunrises from my balcony, breakfasts with Agatha, art classes, lectures, books by the pool. In Marseille, I bought a small sketch pad. In Naples, I took photos of cobblestone alleys and children playing soccer barefoot. In Santorini, I tried watercolor for the first time. My hands shook, but I smiled. I wasn't good at it. But I wasn't trying to be. I was just allowed to exist. One evening, as the ship moved slowly past the coast of Italy, Agatha and I sat on my balcony with glasses of red wine. She looked at me and said, "You've changed since day one." I shrugged. "I feel like I can breathe." She nodded. "That's not nothing. That's everything." A few days later, the cruise director stopped me in the hallway. He'd seen me taking photos at the last port. "You have a good eye," he said. "Would you consider showcasing a few pieces in our passenger art night?" I froze. "Me? I'm not an artist." He smiled. "Maybe you are now." That night, I printed 5 of my best photos. I stood by them in the Gaza gallery, people stopping, asking questions, complimenting me. Not as someone's mom, not as someone's errand runner, just as Elaine. I turned my phone on once, just to check. 30 missed calls, voicemails from Ethan, texts from Dana, even one from Noah. "Grandma, where are you? Dad says you're acting weird, but I hope you're okay." I didn't answer. Not yet. Not because I didn't care, but because I was still healing from realizing how little they did. That night, back in my room, I looked at my reflection in the mirror again. Same eyes. But this time, I saw someone who belonged to herself, not because someone let her, but because she claimed it. I come home, but not to stay. I returned to settle what needs to be said, on my terms. I returned home 2 months later, not to stay, but to finish what needed finishing. The cruise had changed something in me. Not overnight, not dramatically, but quietly, piece by piece, like soft waves smoothing out the jagged edges of an old stone. I came back with shorter hair, brighter clothes, and a stillness that surprised even me. I didn't call Ethan to say I was coming. I just drove straight to their house, my name still technically on the deed. Not to argue, not to prove anything, but to let them see what they thought they could discard. Ethan opened the door. He looked stunned, maybe even a little relieved. "Mom, you're back." I stepped inside. The air smelled like cinnamon and bleach. Too clean, too staged. Noah was at the kitchen table. He looked up and smiled faintly. "Hi, Grandma." I smiled back. "Hi, sweetheart." Dana wasn't there. Pilates probably, or charity brunch. Ethan gestured toward the living room. "We've been worried. You disappeared." I sat on the edge of the couch. "No, I just left. There's a difference." He paused. "You should have told us. We didn't know if you were okay." "You didn't ask if I was okay for 5 years," I replied gently. He looked down. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I'm just here to let you know the house is sold. The sale finalizes next week. I bought a small condo downtown." Ethan's eyes widened. "You what?" "I'm starting over. I needed a space that's mine, not one filled with expectations and unpaid labor. But what about Sunday dinners? Noah's games? I'll attend if I'm invited, and if I want to come." Noah tilted his head. "Are you mad, Grandma?" "No," I said. "I'm just finished being invisible." Weeks passed. I moved into a small, sunlit condo with a view of the park. I filled it with art and light and myself. I joined a photography club. I taught English to refugee women at the library. I wasn't trying to be useful. I was just living. On my 71st birthday, I threw my own party. Not big, not fancy, just true. Agatha flew in from Santa Fe. My neighbors came, friends from the art center. My photography instructor brought a homemade lemon tart, and Ethan came. He stood awkwardly near the door, holding a wrapped box. "Happy birthday, Mom." I smiled and took it. "Thank you for coming." Noah followed him in. He looked taller somehow, more aware. "This place feels like you," he said. "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in years." Later that evening, Ethan and I stood alone on the balcony. He stared at the city lights. "You've changed," he said. "Or maybe you just stopped pretending." "I stopped waiting to be asked what I need," I replied. He hesitated. "I'm sorry for what I did. With the paperwork, with the toast, with everything." I didn't answer right away. Not because I was holding a grudge, but because I needed the silence to say more than any lecture ever could. Finally, I said, "I'm not angry anymore, but I'm not returning to who I was before either." He nodded slowly. "I don't expect you to. No dramatic endings, no screaming matches, just change, real and quiet. I never went back to being Mom the helper. I became Elaine again, and this time, I stayed her. And that forged nursing home paperwork, I still have it, folded, filed, a reminder of how far I've come. Not for revenge, but for truth, a message for ya watching this wise. If you're a mother, a grandmother, or simply someone who's ever felt invisible, unappreciated, or quietly pushed aside, please know this. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not a burden. You are still here, and that means your story is not over, not even close. You don't need permission to begin again. You don't need applause to matter. All you need is one quiet moment of courage to choose yourself. Have you ever had a moment like that, where you stopped waiting and finally said, "This time I live for me"? If you have, I would love to hear it in the comments. Your story might be the one that gives another woman strength to begin again. You're not alone here.